What's up, heathens? How y'all doing? I'm the Godless Engineer, and you are here for a call-in show. Welcome to the line. Today is October 9th, Indigenous Peoples Day of 2023. I'd like to welcome everybody to the line. We've already got a few people in the call list, so I'm really excited to get to them. But I do want to introduce Dr. Aron Adair. Aron, do you want to tell everybody kind of who you are, what you do, and what you're up to?
Yeah. So, trained in physics, PhD physics from the Ohio State University. Work as a data scientist in the defense sector. Also research affiliated at MIT. And while I moonlight as a biblical scholar, done a few things that have gotten at least some attention there. How many of those things will intersect with the calls tonight? We will see. Tonight as well, it's been a rough, kind of crazy week, so I'm just going to also be enjoying a little bit of beverage that might either loosen my tongue or make it fall out of my face. I'm not sure yet.
Awesome. Speaking of which, you've got a drink, and I showed this off beforehand, to which Jimmy, all he had to say was, "That is white trash," is what is Jimmy's reaction. And so here's what I'm drinking tonight. This is Mountain Dew Baja Blast Zero Sugar Hard Mountain Dew. If you could say, it's 21 plus, it's 5% alcohol, and it's an ungodly amount that I'm going to be drinking. 24 fluid ounces is what I've got. So if you want a white trash atheist to tell you how God doesn't exist, tonight's the night to call in. Which leads me to my next point. If you're a theist in the chat section and you want to call in to challenge us about either believing in God, not believing in God, or whether or not Jesus existed, or aliens, then you can call in and talk. One to a white trash Alabamian or Dr. Aron Adair.
And if you want to talk about how the aliens are the gods, we can try to have that conversation. But the moment you say they built the pyramids, we're just going to have to hang up. I'm sorry.
Aliens. Anyways, so if you want to call in, the number is 1-720-619-2288, or there's a link down in the description. If you can't call in from that number, like you're an international caller, you can hit up that link down below. And just as a reminder, we will be discussing super chats tonight. I can't promise you anything specifically if you get us up above a number of super chats, but we'll figure something out during the show. I'm not sure. I will drink whatever's left of this just in one big gulp is what I'll do if you get enough super chats in. But we will be answering or discussing all super chats over $5. So please send in a super chat. The super chats are really great if you don't want to call in, but you still have a question that you want us to answer or discuss. That would be a really great use for the super chats. So, like I said, we do have a few calls that are already lined up with some great questions. Now, Dr. Adair, have you seen on Netflix, there's this new documentary thing about aliens. Have you seen it?
Or the most recent one, I think it's just called Encounters, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's hard to keep track of sometimes because there are so many documentaries on Netflix of not necessarily great fact-finding quality. So I haven't watched that particular one. I have seen a quick review from, darn, I'm forgetting his name all of a sudden. I'm going to have to look it up. But he's one of the famous UFO skeptic debunkers. Where is his? Robert Schaefer. Yeah, he's already written up a review of the first episode and pointing out that the various encounters from there are kind of old hat and were explained like years, if not decades ago. So if you want to do actual fact finding, he's been a better resource and actually like getting down to like the primary sources for various alleged UFO encounters.
Yeah, and well, we just recently watched the newest one that's on Netflix, and it had a lot of persecution complex in it. Like, it just seemed like they were trying to build this narrative that, oh, we're being so abused in the public and everything like that. So that's kind of what they were going for in it. Although they do discuss a lot of different ones that I hadn't heard before. Like, I didn't know that there was apparently, quote unquote, UFO sightings at the Fukushima power plant disaster. There was apparently lights there, but like, this is like easy stuff that you can look up, like just with a quick Google search, and you can find reasonable explanations. So it seems rather ridiculous. But yeah, we just watched that recently, and I know you've got at least one great book on aliens and religion, which I got right over there. I haven't read all the way through it yet, but it's been a great book so far. So definitely check out Aaron's.
And of course, since you mentioned the book, we got to mention the title, because that's how I push paper: Aliens and Religion, Where Two Worlds Collide. And it's basically the various theological issues that will happen or potentially happen if we really show that extraterrestrials exist, it's intelligent, and how do they fit into the grand scheme of things if most of the religion is saying humanity has this special place in the universe, but we find out we are a dime a dozen. How does that work out?
Yeah.
And I will also promote it. It's perhaps the only theology book out there, as far as I know, the only theology book that actually uses differential equations.
Oh, cool. Aaron, I don't know about your like relationship with differential equations, but I remember in college, I once spent an entire 3-day weekend working one problem. So I'm very intimately know differential equations.
I remember having a rough time and actually having to retake my differential equations course. And then later when I did partial differential equations, I was like, how did it get easier? What happened? Was the first class just a filter to keep people away?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's how it kind of was in, or at least that's how it was sold to me in calculus too, because it's like in calculus, they teach you how to do like the piecewise like version of it. And then it's like, oh, here's integrals, and it makes it a whole lot easier. And then for diffie-q, it was like, here's the really long way to do it. And then here's the partial, and that's way easier. It seems to be the running thing in it. But anyways, so we do have a few callers up. The first one is Elizabeth from Florida, and I'm so sorry that you're from Florida there, Elizabeth. I really hate Florida. I like to visit Florida, and that's about it. Hello, Elizabeth. Welcome to the line. Sorry. I don't think that we can hear Elizabeth.
I hear Elizabeth. 1 second, Elizabeth. Let me see why. Just a second, Elizabeth. Elizabeth, do you hear me? All right, we got some kind of tech issue I got to fix.
Yay for technical difficulties. All right.
The only solution is to unplug it and plug it back in.
Yeah, exactly. So this is Hard Mountain Dew Baja Blast. I don't know if y'all like Baja Blast, but Baja Blast is the Taco Bell Mountain Dew. It's pretty good. It doesn't blow your ass out like the rest of Taco Bell does.
So basically you drink the Baja Blast and everything else.
Yeah, my wife goes, what the fuck? Just solidify that white trash thing there.
All right. So the Baja Blast is safe, but everything else at Taco Bell is code red.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I've not seen Baja Blast anywhere but Taco Bell, other than it's been recently been put in the stores.
I'm just trying to make a bad Mountain Dew joke reference. Code red flavor.
Oh, okay. Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
I hold on. I need a little bit more to be more clever.
Okay. Sorry. Just letting everybody know, normally we do this right after the first call, but since we're having a little bit of technical difficulties, if you want to support us here at the line, you can go to patreon.com/call the line. I believe is the link. Yes, call the line. And you can support the show here. It helps us put on all of these great shows every single week. Just like, the shows that are coming up this week. Tomorrow we've got Dave Warnock's Dying Out Loud. And then Wednesday there's
tomorrow's episode with Dave Warnock's actually canceled, but we'll have clips up.
Oh, shit. Okay, so tomorrow's episode of Dave Warnock Show is going to be canceled, but there are going to be clips up, and I forgot to bring up the schedule, which I normally have right here in handy, but I can talk long enough so that I can pull it up.
Ready to connect. Click connect to show now.
Do you hear the robot?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, good. So just another moment Wednesday, or so, and you'll be able to take calls.
Awesome. Wednesday on the Hang Up, we've got Matt Dillahunty and J Mike, and then Thursday on Tackus, we've got Arden Hart and Katy Montgomerie. So if y'all want to tune in the rest of this week, you can. I noticed that there was at least one person in the side chat there that was talking a lot of shit on Facebook today. So I sincerely hope that the person in the chat that was on the Facebook page today calls in, because I don't think that they will, because typically people love to talk shit over text, but then fails to call in otherwise. Oh, it looks like they're a banned caller. Oh, I'm sorry. He can't call in because he's banned already. Why does that not surprise me?
Also, he's just been lying about having tried to call in and said, you hung up on, I called in and was hung up on because I said my pronouns were God, which isn't a set of pronouns. First of all, so that's idiotic. But yeah, we're just gonna tell them to fuck off. However, you should be able to take Elizabeth's call now.
Super. Okay. Let's see, Elizabeth. Hello. How you doing? Hi,
Elizabeth. Do you still not hear?
I don't hear anything on my end. I heard a beep, but that's all I hear.
I don't know why. Okay. All right. I'm going to return to the queue. So now you do hear Elizabeth, but Elizabeth doesn't hear you. And that becomes...
And we got some echo as well.
Well, that's me because I left my mic open.
Well, there you go.
I keep talking about stuff. I don't know what's broken, and it's going to take me a minute.
All right. We got to keep the show going. So can I juggle? Wait, no, I can't. All right.
So, Aaron, right. I want to get your while we're working on the technical difficulties, I want to get your opinion on this. I've been seeing, and I've seen this for a while, but I saw this thing here earlier today about how Christians are identifying the aliens that have been identified by Congress, which that's not what happened, but as angels or something like that, or demons. It's either angels or demons, either one. What do you have to say about the angel demon conspiracy connection to aliens?
So historically, I've seen some back and forth on the general interpretation, and a lot of what I had seen earlier was these attempts to try to say in like the 50s and 60s that aliens were angels. And in particular, in the 60s, there were several books that came out trying to explain the various miracles of the Old and New Testament as alien interaction. So a lot of that was aliens trying to save the Bible. I think they became more demonically interpreted after some of the stories of the close encounters and the abductions started becoming darker. So especially the abduction story of Barney and Betty Hill, where they were allegedly taken up and had all sorts of experiments done on them, including many of a sexual nature. That when that became kind of cemented in American culture starting in the 70s, then there was kind of this switch to interpreting aliens more demonically. I even have a couple books saying, well, originally we thought they were angelic-like, but then we were reading these encounter stories and it sounds like, oh, this sounds much darker, much more sinister. So I think more often than not, modern Christians, if they interpret aliens in that view, is more demonic than angelic, though there's probably a mixed bag, especially since, various conspiracy boards will say multiple different species of aliens have been visiting Earth, and they're all like either in confederation with each other or fighting with each other, and so there's different sides. You get some of that in the X-Files as well.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, while we're on the topic of aliens and religion and stuff, in that Encounters show that we watched, I think it was like episode 3, maybe, or no, I think it was episode 4. It had this woman in there that essentially was speaking in tongues, but claiming that it was an alien language. And so that was kind of a weird fusion of a couple different things there, as far as like the alien stuff goes. I've never heard of that before. Have you ever heard of somebody claiming that they can speak to aliens, but it's just more like speaking in tongues?
I have. And I remember there were some people that were looking into interestingly, the syntax of people saying that they were speaking for aliens in alien tongues. And the thing that was noticed was that the syntax of the way they were speaking was the same like grammatical structures of their native language. So it looks like a made-up language, but using the grammar that you've grown up with. So if you're used to saying, generally most of my sentences are subject, verb, object. Some languages are different. They might go subject, object, verb. That's another common strategy. Basically, we're saying, hey, the structure of the way people are talking here, it looks like the same kinds of ways of setting up sentences or inflecting sentences like their native language, which is also consistent with it being kind of in your head and is just following your native grammar.
Okay. That's interesting.
Okay, we're good for
I
you.
mean, it makes... Okay. So it makes sense that it would be something that they're already used to and everything like that, but I never thought about trying to connect those two. Like, I don't know, the whole gibberish part of the speaking in tongues makes me think, oh, there's no way to actually analyze this because they're just saying sounds and everything. But that's interesting to know. All right.
Sometimes it's babbling, and other times, Oh, go ahead. Let's go ahead.
Okay. Well, I was just gonna say we got Elizabeth from Florida. Hey there, Elizabeth. How you doing?
Hey, Mr. Gleason. I'm fine, thanks. And yourself?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. Glad to hear you finally.
Yeah. Likewise. Listen, before I get to the subject, I know in the past when I've mentioned, my campaign, which began as make America even more Catholic again. I just want to say that we've had a recent success in as much as we've now gone back to all 3 branches of government being headed by a Catholic. So I just want to thank America basically for helping us on that campaign, and I hope we just continue to move that forward.
Well, I mean, I don't have any problem with Catholics necessarily, but making America more Catholic, I feel like, is not necessarily a good thing, but that's a different conversation that we can have. But what did you call in to talk about today?
Granted. Okay, so something I know the two of us do disagree on that end goal, but something that we talked about in the past we do agree on is how would I put it? Citing on the greater likelihood of the story of Jesus that has come down to us having a basis in a mythological beginning rather than a historical beginning. And recently, I had I recently come to, I guess, a kind of like quote unquote final answer, at least for my own self personally, on that. After having a conversation with Bart Ehrman, and by the way, just wanted to congratulate you on getting him on your own show. I did watch that recently, so congratulations to you on that.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I was so great. I was so grateful that Bart was gonna come on and allow me to like poke his brain a little bit about some of his evidence and his views about the historical Jesus. So I'm really grateful for that. But so what would you want to, or what conclusion did you come to?
Well, so after I had a chance to talk to him on or have him answer one of my questions at one of his Q&As on there. I felt more compelled to go and find a sort of like final answer on this. Like, were we ever, at least in terms of like, were we ever going to be able to get to some sort of like definitive conclusion one way or the other? And in that process, what I discovered is the character of Uncle Sam. I mean, I don't mean that I discovered that character, but in looking at the character of Uncle Sam as a kind of analogy, and to see where people had landed on that question and how they landed at that question. Well, for me, and maybe this just has to do more with personality, on the question of Uncle Sam, I would also lean towards I guess you would say, a mythological origin for Uncle Sam. Just, to me, it's just very obvious that U.S., these are two initials. Having served in the military myself, I know how people in the military, they'll sort of they'll start with an idea and then they'll narrow it down to the initials, but then the initials will go back and they'll stand for something else. So in that same way that, there's a phrase, well, let's just say it ends up being Blue Falcon, but it starts off as something like, I'm not going to use that kind of language, but if you've been in the military, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And in the same way, I can see how United States then becomes U.S., and then U.S. then becomes Uncle Sam as a kind of like an in-joke almost. So it turns out that the competing theory is that there is a quote-unquote historical Uncle Sam, who is a gentleman by the name of Samuel Wilson, who was a quartermaster, or you might say somebody who was in charge of supplying the troops during the War of 1812. So people would receive these shipments, they'd be stamped U.S., people would say, oh, who's that from? And they'd say, oh, that's from my Uncle Sam, see, there's his mark. And a lot of stuff was coming from a man whose name was Sam. He probably took that on as a nickname, and so that's one idea. Now, the counter argument, which to me seems very strong, is that in the 1870s, we already had the song Yankee Doodle Dandy, which makes reference to a real live nephew of my Uncle Sam. So the idea of the United States government being personified in the personhood of an Uncle Sam had already been solidified in this piece of popular media, which continues to this day, and presumably already existed in just like casual conversation before that. But that's like 30, 40 years before this supposed historical Uncle Sam ever gained any notoriety. But nonetheless, in 1961, Congress passed a resolution saying that this person, Samuel Wilson, is quote unquote the historical Uncle Sam. So despite what I would consider to be undeniable evidence that the personification of the United States government as Uncle Sam already existed 30, 40 years before this person ever came on the scene, nonetheless, you have this authority of the United States government itself saying, no, there totally was a historical Uncle Sam. So bringing this back to the question of historical Jesus, in my mind, this has reached for me a personal conclusion that it really doesn't matter how much evidence is ever presented or how well of a narrative is ever presented for people who have decided that there must have been a historical Jesus. There is always going to be a historical Jesus, particularly when people are so willing to sort of like open up the question of what would define a historical Jesus. Because I was looking at what is the frequency of that name that would have existed at the time, and if you say, okay, well, we're just looking for somebody named Jesus who lived in the 1st century, who was unalived by the Romans for rebelling against them. And a lot of people would say, yeah, that's good enough to count for a historical Jesus. Well, there were like 1,000 historical Jesuses who were unalived by the Romans just in the siege of Jerusalem in 70 AD. So you can find all the, if you open things up that wide, you can find all the quote unquote historical Jesuses you want. But in my mind, it just makes a lot more sense that there's kind of a progression in Christianity, which I would say goes back to the writing of Isaiah, to then the development of, the idea, the veering off, if you will, from, oh, well, let's look for a an actual human military leader to, well, what if we reimagine our salvation as something we already have inside of us, that's that's already available to us?
Question for you, Elizabeth.
Sure.
One of the things that
Yeah.
popped in my mind when you were starting this discussion and your "Make America Catholic Again" statement. Are you familiar with Thomas Brodie?
Uh-huh. Thomas
Was that a
Brodie?
yes or no? I'm
I
sorry.
don't. That name doesn't. Mm-mm.
Okay, because he's a elderly Dominican friar. Did a lot of biblical research, especially development of the New Testament, working on how many of the stories are imitating stories from the Old Testament. And he came out with a book about a decade ago where he revealed that he
Yes.
was also a Jesus mythicist. If you want a Catholic Jesus mythicist, you can get his memoir. Because when that book came out, the Dominicans were just like, Tom, you keep talking like that, we're kicking you out. So he's been basically completely silent ever since then. Yeah, there's an interesting story there if you want to look into that.
More about that, right?
Yeah,
Yes,
basically it was
yes,
yeah, it's basically either be quiet or you're losing your stipend.
Right, right.
So Elizabeth, is your
so we gotta kind of watch what we say
conclusion
about it, but yeah.
So your conclusion is that it doesn't matter if there was a historical Jesus, or regardless of what information we have, there will always be a historical Jesus?
You're talking about for me personally, or are you talking in terms of like the public debate?
Well, I mean, I guess I was talking about like the reason why you called in. The conclusion that you came to was it's either it doesn't matter or there will always be a historical Jesus regardless of what the information says.
Well, I think that, okay, in terms of the public debate, I think the question is always going to be there because for the reasons that I gave, people can open it up, and if people are willing to, with Uncle Sam, that's not even 2,000 years ago, and people are willing to go.
Okay. Sorry to cut you off, Elizabeth. But could we stick to could we just stick to what you personally believe?
Right. So on my personal beliefs, I would point to I'd say right there in the gospel when it talks about St. Thomas, our Lord says to St. Thomas that, blessed are you for your faith because you have seen, but more blessed are those who have faith, although they do not see or have not seen. So I would say absolutely. It's rather than a lot of people who sit there and are like, well, gee, I really hope there is, I really hope there is a historical Jesus because I'd hate to think that I was believing in this. And I think it's better like completely abandon it and just be like, if there was a historical Jesus, then great. But it's kind of like missing the point.
It's like looking for historical veracity to the claims of Christianity is missing the point of Christianity?
I don't know that. Well, I mean, Christianity is not a history. It's not supposed to be a history lesson. I mean, Christianity is about.
Well, I mean, that's what the claims of Christianity are. I mean,
full of philosophy.
Well, the claims of Christianity are this guy existed. He's a historical person. Historically speaking, he died on the cross and then he resurrected.
I disagree with you on
historically.
that. I disagree with you. I disagree with you on that. We believe in one Lord Jesus Christ, the only begotten Son of God, born of the Father before all ages, God from God, light from light, true God from true God, begotten, not made, consubstantial with the Father. Through him,
don't worry, we know the Nicene Creed. We know the Nicene Creed.
I don't think they're talking about his carpentry.
But they also say in the Nicene Creed that he was killed under Pontius Pilate, which is a very historical claim.
Right. I guess, Elizabeth, I'm really having an issue with figuring out what exactly you're saying about Jesus here. Is there any way, like in like maybe a sentence or possibly short 2 sentences, you can kind of summarize the point that you're trying to make with the call? I'm sorry, did we
Are you
lose
still there,
Elizabeth?
Elizabeth?
It
She's
says
still
she's
connected
still
on my
connected.
end. Yeah. Elizabeth, did you mute the phone with your face?
I've done that more than once.
I don't know. Elizabeth, if you
Yeah.
can hear us, disconnect and call back in. We'll get you right back on the air.
She did. Yeah, she disconnected. She must have
Okay.
lost connection. Anyways, as far as the historical Jesus goes, I think, and I think what she was trying to say is that they're like the emphasis on believing without having evidence is always going to be there, so it doesn't really matter as to whether or not there was a historical Jesus, because people are always going to believe in a historical aspect to him because of the prominence of belief without evidence. Maybe I think maybe is where she was going with that. I'm not exactly sure.
I think she was saying that
case,
she would like to never be held responsible for her beliefs and have to actually defend that any of them are coherent, and defend the idea that her having faith without evidence is actually virtuous, and therefore she's doing good. I think that's kind of what I think she was trying to defend, but was doing it in a roundabout way.
Yeah. I'm not sure. That could be it too. Personally, and I'll say this, and I'll let you say whatever you want to there, Aaron. But personally, I feel like there are very hard, like, historical claims made within Christianity, and I just really want to know what the evidence is for those historical claims, and whether or not they are actually true. I think defining what we mean by Jesus is very important, and that you have to start from there in order to start to identify, like, the evidence for said Jesus. That's where I feel like you got to start from. But it is very important to me to know what was historically true, because I feel like the closer we could be to reality, like the truth of reality, the better off we'll be. But what do you think there, Aaron?
It was just interesting, her example that she was bringing up of Uncle Sam, because I remember looking this up a couple years ago for something related to my work, strangely enough, and it creates an interesting analogy for the possibility of a mythical Jesus, simply because if Uncle Sam was supposed to represent the U.S., is there some sort of history or precedent for that? And us in the 21st century kind of forget some of our old symbols. So, like, there used to be a pretty prominent goddess of the United States, Columbia, and this representation of America. Literally, she was called Columbia, like, named after Columbus, and she has all sorts of regalia that also shows how she's just a goddess of liberty and all those things. So that had existed even before the Uncle Sam myth started to develop. So you could say, hey, this shows this precedent of previous gods of America. In the same sort of way, some people will point to other dying and rising gods as precedent for the dying and rising god Jesus. So an interesting analog that she may not have intended on that point in particular.
Yeah. All right. So we do have a couple more people in queue. But if you would like to ask us or challenge us about either God or the historicity of Jesus or anything like that, please consider calling in. The number is 1-720-619-2288. You can call in and you can challenge us on different aspects of either atheism or history. So please do call if you have any problems with anything that we're saying here tonight. We've got Cooper calling in to something to do with agnostic atheists. Hey there, Cooper. How you doing? Oh, Cooper, can you hear us?
Well, this is odd, because I haven't made any changes since we fixed it. And
I was really looking forward to hanging with Mr. Cooper.
I've put Cooper back in the queue. I don't know if Cooper hears me. Hopefully he does. I'm going to test the system again. But yeah,
Right.
I will say this confirms for me earlier that this wasn't something I broke, because all I did was reset the system, basically. I think our call system may be having errors tonight, which makes me feel better and worse, because it's better that I'm not stupid, but it's worse in that I can't control potentially the outcome. But let me see what I can do here.
Okay.
All right.
What were you going to say there, Aaron?
I was going to say, in the meantime, let's bring up something controversial to see if we can get some super chats about this. All right. So I'm going to say something controversial. I'm actually okay with candy corn.
What?
I know this is divisive. I know it's basically wax-covered sugar.
I've actually got an alert that pops up on my live streams that has me going, like, crunching up something and going, oh, can you smell the candy corn?
John, do you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
John, do you hear me?
Same.
All right, so this is weird because I'm now calling it through the call-in system. So what actually happened was earlier the call-in system broke, and when you picked up Cooper's call, Cooper either didn't hear or didn't respond, but actually this call-in system's fine right now. So that's fine. Let's just try and take Cooper again, and then also just so you know, the person on line 11 had to disconnect and call back, so they've actually been here longer than the person on line 8. Just letting you know that too.
Right. Yeah, I got you.
Okay,
let's see if we can get let's see if we can get Cooper back in. If not Cooper, then we'll try that other line. Hi there, Cooper. Are you there?
Cooper, are you muted?
Do you
Cooper
have a
may
microphone?
need to call back in since they called in through the web caller and maybe they deactivated the window or something happened. So Cooper, if you're hearing us, but we're not hearing you, maybe try calling back and we'll get you then.
Yep. So I'm gonna drop you there, Cooper, and I hope that you'll come back. Next up, we've got Gerard, who is an atheist. Hey there, Gerard. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you guys?
Doing all right.
All right.
Okay. Yes, I wanted to talk about free will. I hope that's okay.
Let's do it.
Because recently I had a couple observations that kind of made me think that free will could exist in a deterministic world, which is usually not, people usually don't think that's the case. And the first thing I'd like to ask, or I thought of it through a question. So my question is free will even like intelligible? In other words, if free will can't exist in a deterministic world, what kind of world can it exist in? If you want to say something on that.
I'm going to say it depends on your... For me, it's going to depend on your definition. If you're talking libertarian free will, that basically past circumstances don't determine what you're going to do, I think that is, at best, incoherent. At the very least, it's undesirable, because if the past doesn't actually determine what you do, that basically is the same as saying it's random. And if my decisions are random, in what way is it actually willed? If it's just the roll of the die. On the other hand, I would rather use the term free will in the way that's actually useful. Am I doing it under my own volition, or am I being coerced to make those decisions? The difference between me making a decision of going to McDonald's and saying I would like a hamburger versus somebody putting a gun to my head and telling me I'm getting a hamburger. Even though the outcome was the same, the two are different enough to me that I would say one is freely desired and the other one is not.
Okay. So me personally, the free will I want to talk about is that kind of like that first one. The one where we think we have the ability to choose what we do. Like we can alter the future in some way. We can choose. We're not stuck on like one path, if you know what I mean.
Well, so isn't that more freedom of choice rather than freedom of will? Because I guess in my view, free will like absolute free will, or maybe that's libertarian free will, is you have every single option open to you, when that's not actually the case. Because, like, you know, if you don't, let's say you don't like Korean food, you know, it may be true that the option is open to you to get, you know, Korean food for dinner one night, but the option wouldn't occur to you naturally. So you have the freedom of choice of the options that freely present themselves to you, but it's not like every single option freely presents itself to you. Does that make sense?
That makes sense to me. I would say I don't, because obviously we can't just do anything, or even if we, like, I feel like that's a little broad of a definition of free will, because I think everybody's going to be somewhat handicapped. Like, if you're stuck in the safe, there's no way to get out of the safe. Like, but that doesn't mean you may or may not have, that might not mean you don't have free will. I'm thinking of it like, you know, you go to the ice cream store, you can get chocolate or vanilla. You choose to get vanilla. Did the universe determine that you chose, like, you were going to choose vanilla, or could you have chosen chocolate? You know what I mean?
I mean, I think, so would this be representative of what you're asking? Let's say you go into the same ice cream store, choose chocolate or vanilla, and you choose vanilla. If you were to be able to rewind time and repeat those events without any other, like with no changes, repeat those exact same events, would you be able to have a different outcome? And I don't think that you would be able to have a different outcome. I think that depending on the inputs to the system, you have a certain output that is generated. And I think that if you rewind things and you play it all out again with the exact same inputs to the system, nothing changes, you're going to have the exact same output, the output being choosing vanilla. And so I don't, like, in that respect, I don't think that free will exists.
So that's exactly the free will I guess I want to talk about, is that going back in time and that you could have chosen differently. Mm-hmm. And that's what I think we can have, despite this world, the macro world specifically, being deterministic, or at least.
So what inputs would be different? What inputs to the system would be different after rewinding time?
Well, I think it's possible, and I don't know for certain, like, the mechanism by which this would happen, but I think it's possible to have the same, it might be possible to have the same input, but potentially have different outcomes. That might sound a little crazy, I'm sure. But I'm just trying to think which direction I want to go.
Well, okay, so let me ask this. Let me ask this. What, like considering the biological nature of our brains and how our brains are controlled by chemical process and everything like that, what would be the mechanism by which that variability exists? Like in our brains, like our brains and how our brains work and our personalities and everything like that are shaped by our experiences and other things. So if everything is exactly the same, if you have all the exact same inputs, you have all the exact same experiences and everything like that, what about your brain, other than just coming up with magic, like a magic reason, that your brain would end up making a different choice, considering that it has all the exact same inputs? I guess I just don't see the mechanisms that would allow that to happen.
I'll say one simple mechanism. I'm sure, like, one simple mechanism, which doesn't really solve the answer of free will, is randomness. Potentially, maybe there's just a random event that could have different outcomes. Obviously, that's not really, you could argue that's not free will because it's still random. But
I would actually say it's the exact opposite of will, because it's literally, I have no control over that. Whether I chose chocolate or vanilla is now just a random number generator somewhere in my brain. How am I willing my result if it's just completely, there's no reason why I have determined that. It's not even because I desired it. It's something else randomly made me desire that. That sounds even worse.
Right.
I mean, that's literally
the
like,
reason I bring that up.
Quit hitting yourself. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
That's how random it sounds to me.
The reason I bring that up is I kind of just want to pose the idea of, could that maybe not, or at any point, is it possible that one event could have multiple outcomes, like multiple potential outcomes? And by potential, I don't mean like, for all we know, this could have happened. I mean, literally, some input happens, and it's possible that two things, or one of two things might happen, and there's not necessarily a deterministic mechanism by which it chooses one. Is that
well, I mean,
possible?
I kind of feel like you're trying to appeal to like maybe superposition in quantum physics, maybe, or just physics in general, like the ability
quantum physics.
Go ahead.
Well, the thing is, the way it relates to quantum mechanics is that quantum mechanics, our formulation of it anyway, our models of quantum mechanics have probability sort of built in. And I'm not going to make the claim that quantum mechanics has proved that things can happen without causes. But I am saying that, at least in quantum mechanics, our best models are probabilistic. It seems as if multiple things could happen, even though only one does happen. Well,
I mean, I think that you're confusing. I think that you're confusing potentiality with actuality, because like it's kind of like with Schrodinger's cat. You know, the cat is both alive and dead at the exact same time, right? In the same way, before you make the decision, you have chosen both chocolate and vanilla. It's not until we observe the output or observe the result has there been a decision made or an outcome come to. And I think in the same way, like with Schrodinger's cat, you know, it still suffers from the same thing, that, you know, if you rewind the time on Schrodinger, he's still going to wait however long he's going to wait before he checks on the cat to see if the cat's still alive. And so without some other kind of mechanism to like vary like the amount of time he chooses to wait, he's going to wait the exact same amount of time. And even if you, let's say you did a whole D&D version of this, and that you had a D20 and you rolled the D20 before making any decision, you know, you rolled for initiative. Well, every time you roll for an initiative, after rewinding it, you're going to roll it the exact same way. And if you roll it the exact same way, then it's going to come up with, you know, the same number every single time, because you're going to have the exact same force, you're going to have the exact same air pressure, you're going to have all the exact same inputs to that system, and so it's going to come up exactly the same again, the exact same way. So you're still left with this thing. I think that, you know, proposing a magical RNG that's not bound by reality, I think is a bit special pleading.
Did you say rewind? Did you say like if we rewind it, the same thing would happen?
Right. I mean, I'm sorry. I thought that's what we were discussing. That you play out events once and then rewind time and then play it out again.
Yeah. Well, I like that you brought that up, because I'm not certain that, I mean, I'm not sure if this is what you're saying, but I'm also not certain that rewindability, like, I'm not sure that things have to happen the same way backwards as they do forwards, because ultimately in reality things only move forwards.
When it comes to the laws of physics, they are time agnostic. Forward and backward is the same at a microscopic level. The only reason we can tell the difference of what direction time moves is basically explained by the second law of thermodynamics, that some states are more likely than others, and we go to continuously more and more likely states is ultimately how things, quote unquote, evolve forward through time. But if you look at, like, say, the laws of physics from Newton, look at the laws of physics from Einstein, forward and backward in time looks identical.
Right, and that's because we have the mathematical models. We can plug in a state, and then we can run them forwards, we can run them backwards, and that's like the model that we have, right?
It's the model we have,
Like
and
our,
it's the
our
model that
models
keeps
are,
winning.
our models are time
if-
agnostic, is what you're saying.
There's only one law of physics that really seems to have any directionality, and that's the second law of thermodynamics. But all the interaction laws are they don't have any arrow of time built in. Forward or backward looks the same to them.
Right. So what I would like to posit is, we know that mathematical models are they sort of describe reality, they predict things, etc. But could it not be the case that even though the model works forward and backwards, physically things only go forward? And if that's
So
the case,
I want to let you know that your premise point is, let's assume the laws of physics are wrong, and from that, see if your premises work out. So when your starting point is assume physics is wrong about something fundamental, just as a thought experiment, it's a really weak starting point.
I wasn't saying the laws are wrong. I'm saying I'm not sure where you got that, but I think
Well, you're saying here's what the laws describe, but it's not right.
Yeah.
That's fundamentally saying the laws in a very fundamental way are wrong.
What I'm arguing against is the time agnosticism part. Is because the time agnostic part, for all we know, it's in the mathematical models that it's built. The mathematical models are time agnostic, but mathematical models aren't necessarily the reality.
Well, the whole point is they're describing reality, and they do a damn good job.
I don't know how we got off on this particular tangent, because like the whole playing events out, rewinding, and then playing them again is just a hypothetical and not something that I'm actually arguing for, like in reality or anything. And all I was doing was using that as an example of like what would change in that system if we effectively changed nothing and reran the events. My point is to highlight that there would be no change.
I mean, perhaps, I hate to say perhaps, but, the laws are, the laws of quantum mechanics are probabilistic. So, I mean, if we rewind time, are we sure that the same thing would happen if the laws are probabilistic?
I mean, if the laws are probabilistic, then they would have to follow, the laws of probability. And if you don't change the inputs to a system and you run a statistical analysis on that system, what would change in order for you to get a different set of results?
I'd actually like to cut in. Sorry. Sorry. I thought you were asking him that question. We're going to pause, let him answer. Gerard, the exact question you just asked was already answered by a PhD in physics, and now you've asked it again. So at this point, we have a situation where, hang on, at this point, Gerard, we have a situation where we are doing an academic versus a person who, when they smoked weed, came up with, but what if the universe, like when you rewind it, bro, level of argumentation. And I think it's time to move on, because we're doing a lot of, what if we just ignore, and what if math isn't really describing that? And what about the probability? This has become pointless and meaningless, and just go smoke weed and talk about it with your friends, unless you have a point of clear contention.
I don't think that's accurate.
Yeah, I know you don't. I know you think that what you came up tonight with tonight is very clever and deep, and something that is good enough to bring to an actual academic. I know.
Let me say one more thing, and then you can hang up. You said this.
No, actually, I'm going to hang up now because you told me I had to wait. I wasn't going to hang up, but then you said, let me say one more thing and then you can. And I don't let callers tell me how the show works. So that's literally why I hung up, was because you said that. Otherwise, you would have gotten it out.
Yeah. I felt like we were going around in circles too. And I was at the same point that Jimmy was. He just beat me to it. But
if I may throw in one interesting corrective, though, the laws of quantum mechanics are not necessarily probabilistic. In fact, in particular, the evolution of the quantum wave function is described by what's called the Schrödinger equation. It's a differential equation, and its outcomes are completely deterministic. At a very fundamental level, the equations of quantum mechanics are still mechanics. So given a certain input, it gives you a certain output every single time. Now, what happens in a given outcome is probabilistic, and why we're getting something probabilistic out from something that looks deterministic is then the arguments of how to interpret the Schrodinger equation in quantum mechanics. I am in the view of what's called the many worlds interpretation, that basically says all those worlds exist. And so, in a sense, everything is determined because all possibilities actually happen.
Yeah. I think that, I mean, I guess I'm probably in that as well. But I guess just for any one person's experience, I feel like it's not like you can only experience whatever you experience, you know?
If you're the one who won the lottery, you look like you're super lucky. If you take the 1,000-foot view and see the 100 million other people who bought a lottery ticket and realize somebody's got to win. So it goes from, wow, this looks like this amazing random thing for me. Take the back view and it's like, oh, it is 100% certain. It is determined. Someone will win.
All right. Well, we do have a couple more callers, but there are still lines open. We got a little bit of time left in the show tonight. We haven't had any super chats. We'd really love to see some super chats tonight.
Send super chats. Otherwise, we have to change the show to just be people smoking weed and making up theories that if you just ignore math and physics might work.
If you don't send enough, and guys, if you don't send enough super chats, this is my dinner for tonight.
That's right. You can't even pour cheese on it.
Oh, if only I could afford cheese.
But yeah, so if you want to challenge us on God or the historicity question or anything like that, please give us a call, 1-720-619-2288. We'll be able to answer any callers or any questions that you might have as callers. Or if you don't want to call in, you can send a super chat. That would be a great way of asking us a question. So please consider doing that. Also, let's try to make sure that Dr. Adair doesn't eat only the candy for dinner.
I have a super chat idea. Send in your super chats for things that Jimmy must do before you hang up. Please go ahead and tell you. Send your super chats, including the things that before Jimmy just send super chats that begin with "before you hang up," or what? How did he word it? Let me say this before, and then you can hang up. Just something like that. Before you hang up, you must hear this. Go ahead and send those in, and I'll hang up on them.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, let's, I know we were trying Cooper earlier. He's been hanging on for a little while. Let's try Cooper real quick. Cooper, are you there?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I got you, Cooper. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. How's everyone on your end?
Yeah, I'm doing all right.
Fantastic.
So what you got for us?
You got me. Yeah, definitely. So I don't know if you saw what I wrote, what the call screener wrote. I want to share my current belief structure as it has come to be recently, and to see if I could maybe fit in and jive with atheistic and agnostic circles.
Okay.
So formerly, I used to believe that Jehovah was all the way at the top of the rung. I used to be what I would call a modified polytheist, and I kind of believed that Jehovah was at the top of the rung. And then when Lucifer fell, all the angels that fell with him rebelled even against him and started going into their own factions and inspired all the different world religions. And now I just kind of think maybe I'm going into the realm of agnosticism and atheism and saying, well, I really don't know, and I'm not necessarily convinced. Not sure what it would take to convince me of all that. Yeah. And I think it's kind of like it's a Goonies situation for me. I don't think you guys remember the Goonies, but like that one scene where they're at that wishing well and the one Goonie kid says, you know what, this was my wish, and it didn't come true, so I'm taking him back. I'm taking them all back. And I had just one prayer, just a couple of prayers that I would pray, and it didn't come true. So I'm not praying anymore until they come true. And even then, I need proof.
Okay, so wait, you're saying you're comparing your situation to the Goonies in that you're saying that you're not going to be praying anymore?
Because none of my prayers came true.
Okay. Well, how would you discern your prayers not coming true from God just telling you no? And you know, in that way.
Well, I think they're pretty simple prayers. Like, gee, he's got to be a pretty big dickhead not to answer my prayers.
That's a little narcissistic, I guess. I mean, I feel like it doesn't really matter how big or small the prayers are. But another thing is, so let me get this straight. You're currently, you are in the camp of not believing in God, but you don't believe in God because God didn't answer your prayers. Is that correct?
Well, I would say it's not necessarily that I don't believe in God because he did not answer my prayers. That's part of it. But I just don't anymore see any evidence for God. I don't see any tangible in my hand. I can look at it. I can touch it. I can feel it. I can examine it under a microscope. I can put it under a CAT scan machine or an MRI or a Geiger counter and get anything like that.
Why would you put it under a Geiger counter? Is it that nuclear?
I don't know. I mean, I had imagined God might have some nuclear. In my definition of what God could do when I used to believe in him, I used to believe he was just a maximally powerful God that could to some degree manipulate the physical laws of reality and therefore can control gamma radiation and all sorts of different radiation.
Okay, I have no idea why you're calling in at all. Is it just to say, hey, I don't believe in gods any longer? Like, is that what you're saying?
I wanted to see if I was actually in the realm of agnosticism and atheism in my current belief structure, and to see if my current belief structure would get me accepted by agnostics and atheists.
Okay. Well, let me ask you a couple questions. Do you currently believe in any gods?
No, but I'm keeping my mind open, as in I'm skeptical about it. They'd have to do some real work.
No, you don't have no, you don't have an active belief in any gods. Do you know whether or not a God exists?
No.
Okay, then it seems like you would be in the camp of agnostic atheist without, I mean, I don't, I'm trying to get to the point of this. And I feel like what you've already told us, and correct me if I'm wrong, you started out being more polytheistic, with some kind of crazy idea about how Yahweh nut checked Satan down to the earth and something or another. And then now you don't know whether or not a God exists, but you don't believe in any gods, but you're open to the possibility of God existing. And that's currently where you're at.
Right. And the only reason I'm open to the idea of God existing is just for good skepticism, for the sake of keeping my mind open for good skepticism and saying, well, hey, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's neither here nor there. It's not provable. So I'm falling back.
Okay.
Like I'm going to atheism, but like when I go to atheism, it's like I find myself falling back on my agnosticism.
Well, I mean, I think that you got to recognize that like agnostic and atheist are kind of, they're separate. You can be agnostic about a lot of things. And if you're agnostic about God's existence, then, you would be an agnostic. But if you don't currently actively believe in a God existing, you would also be an atheist. So that would be why the full label agnostic atheist exists. But I mean, yeah, I think that you're an agnostic atheist. I mean, unless you have any other kind of crazy beliefs, like, do you think that aliens are demons?
I would believe that aliens are I don't believe in demons, because I threw that along with the God beliefs. But I think that probably aliens exist somewhere out in the far reaches of the universe. Whether they visited this planet or not, I would need tangible proof of that evidence.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you calling in. I don't know. Sorry, I totally took this over. Dr. Adair, did you have anything to add or say?
I do really like the idea of taking a Geiger counter up to a deity and see what happens.
It would probably explode. It would probably explode, I would say.
If that happened, though, that also means my body is also encountering that radiation, so I think I would just turn into a puddle of cancer cells.
Yeah. Well, thank you for taking my call, guys.
No problem. Thank you for calling in there, Cooper. Glad we could clear that up for you.
Thanks, my guy. Bye-bye.
Yep. You have a great night. See ya. All right. Well, that was interesting. Yeah. A lot of people, I feel like, there's two camps to that, because it's either, people are strictly agnostic and atheist are on the same level, or they're talking about the same thing. And then there's other people that see them as two different categories of talking about two different things. So, I didn't know if you agreed with what I was saying or what. That's why I was trying to give you into it.
To me, I'm very happy with atheist agnostic being overlapping categories, that you can be both at once. You currently don't think gods exist, but you don't really think you can call it a knowledge claim. That seems totally consistent to me. I just think, of course, the evidence is so strong one way that I can't be agnostic. I think I can say I know that it's a justified true claim.
Yeah. Well, I typically say I'm very nuanced in it, because for any of the God definitions that we currently have, any of the descriptions that we have, I'm very Gnostic about it. So I'm just a hard atheist when it comes to like all current definitions. And that's typically what people are talking about whenever they're talking about those things, is whatever current definition that we have, unless they got some weird definition that they came up with, on their own. But yeah. All right. So
real quick. I just have a thought that was plaguing me during that whole call, but I promise to not interrupt that call to myself. I think one of the things that he was bringing up about not necessarily being met with, I don't know, that he doesn't know if he feels welcome in an atheist or theist, whatever. We had a call yesterday where a person brought up reasons why they don't believe anymore and whether they were good. And it's kind of one of those things where it's like, there's not a lot of bad reasons to not believe in God, except reasons that don't match skepticism, that don't meet a burn of skepticism. So if someone says, I don't believe in God because my prayers weren't answered, that's a really stupid reason to not believe in God, if that's really what you're staking it on. The reason whether or not you should believe in God should be entirely whether or not God exists, appears to exist or not exist, not whether or not he worked for your benefit and he operated as a genie like you thought he would operate. Because plenty of God descriptors account for that, because I don't even think most gods answer prayers that people have believed in throughout history. So that part was the thing that I thought might have been getting lost, is that he doesn't feel like he is, even though he uses the word skeptical, that he's not maybe treated like he's that good of a skeptic. And frankly, if that was his reasoning, that's correct. You're not that good of a skeptic if you don't believe in God because he wasn't your personal genie.
We don't know what he was praying for, so I want to give the benefit of the doubt. If he were, say, like praying for like the recovery of his son or daughter from some terrible accident, and that didn't come true, I put that in a different category than I wish for a Lamborghini and didn't get that. So I want to be fair that we don't know what he prayed for.
I wouldn't. I could say that you could say that's an adequate reason. If you believe there's a God and he doesn't grant the recovery of your child, especially if you believe in what are right now the mainstream prayer answering gods, you could say this is why I resent God, but not because, not that that's why you don't believe in him, because there's no promise if anything, the whole, presuming if it's a prayer God, most often it's going to be a Christian God, but even if it was some sort of Wiccan God or whatever, the whole idea is supposed to be if they don't do it, it's because they have good reasons. And you might not understand their good reasons because of the mysterious way. So while I can understand a person being resentful and going, if a person were to tell me that they became so resentful of God, they decided not to believe in him almost as like a fuck you to God, I would be like, cool, don't ever represent atheism. Please keep that shit to yourself, because we have enough people going around going, you don't actually not believe in God, you just hate him. And apparently the last caller may be in that category.
Yeah. It also does remind me of a bit of text from the Holy Scriptures known as the Onion. Amputee asked to walk a God. God answers prayer, no.
Yeah.
Sorry, I muted. I chuckled.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I laughed a lot more in my head. I was another call just popped in here.
All right.
But so next up we've got Karen. She's been hanging on for quite a while. Hey there, Karen. How you doing?
Doing great, thanks.
Nice, awesome. Now
You can hear me okay?
I'm a little excited to hear. Yeah, I got you. There's a little bit of a delay. I'm entirely excited to hear your story. So please, especially because we got Dr. Adair on tonight, please tell us about these multiple alien UFO craft meetings.
Yes. Yeah, well, it's not that they came to meet me necessarily. It's just that I witnessed these with other people. I never was alone when I saw these. So the first one was when I was 6 years old. I was in 1965, so I'm up there in years. And there were three. Your typical saucer with the domes on them, like you would expect to see back in the old movies and sci-fi shows. And they were in a formation, with the lead one being higher up and then the other two not being the same level, but they seemed to like be tied together when they moved together, and they didn't move normal. They moved like down, up 90 degrees, just and really fast. And the other girls that were around my age, one was older, and we were walking to school, and we ended up running because we got scared because it seemed to be coming closer to us. And we got scared and we ran because we thought, oh, aliens and monsters, and we saw War of the Worlds and all that stuff. So we didn't like that. So we were scared. We ran, and the first adult we came to was the crossing guard. We came and told him what's happening. We were crying. We were upset. He said, okay, I believe you guys. I kind of saw something, but just for a split second, and I think you're right. But here's the thing. I have a friend who's seen things. Don't tell anybody. Don't tell anyone, because then they'll tell people, and they're going to put you in a rubber room like they did my friend. They took him away, and he has not been seen since. So please do not tell anybody. So we agreed to just calm down, go into school. You'll be fine. We don't see him anymore. I'll walk you in. Everything's fine. So that was that experience. The second one
before we move on to the next one, a lot of times people's memories of these things or what people experience are heavily influenced by media, and you directly connecting what you saw. Hold on, Karen. You directly connecting what you saw to what was available in popular media kind of is setting off little red flags for me about what you experienced. I'm not saying you didn't see something, but I'm just saying that I think that the proclivity for the human mind to sort of fabricate things or fabricate experiences or just to be mistaken is a higher likelihood than aliens actually visiting.
Well, I agree with you there. And I couldn't say that it wasn't our own government had some kind of craft. I couldn't say any of that stuff. I'm just telling you what I experienced and my friends, to which we did discuss amongst each other, but that's it. We all recounted the same thing. We could all be wrong. I'm not disagreeing with you at all on that. That was
okay. So do you? So I mean, are you saying that you don't know what you experienced, or do you have like a firm those were definitely alien aircraft?
I tried for years to say that we saw things and we were like a mass hallucination, because I tend to be more, I'm calling because Dr. Adair being here, I tend to be more science-minded. So I tended to just put it in the back of my mind. It was just a weird experience until other things happened. And when the other things happened, then it was like, okay, something's going on here. And so, yeah, the other experiences made it a lot more. Then I became a believer that I should seek out more information. And the second one was I was talking with a neighbor in my neighborhood, and I'm kind of in a valley with these mountains all around me. And all of a sudden, this craft that was big, it was bigger. It was like the size of two big Volkswagens smashed together, kind of shaped like that, half matte black and then silver in between, and it revolved, like rolled around, went in a big arc above us, about 100 feet in the air above us, and then continued going where it was going to crash into an interchange that we have on freeway, and it just disappears then. And my friend who I was talking to was just nervous and crying and upset, and I said, calm down. She goes, what are those? I said, it's a UFO. We don't know what it is, but whatever it is, they're not coming to get us. They're gone. It's gone away. See, you don't have to worry. And we're not that important, even if they wanted to abduct people. It's not us they want. So don't worry about it. But she was traumatized after that. And every time I see her and I talk about the UFO thing, she's like, oh, no, don't talk about that. That was so scary. So that was the second experience. So after that, that's when I decided to go into check out the ufology stuff, and and a lot of crackpots on that and all that. So then what I did was I started doing the CE5 things through Dr. Stephen Greer, which I'm sure you've heard of. And we have the tones, and I vectored them in, and I took my husband with me, and then I went with a friend, and I saw one that was see-through. I literally could see through the craft. It came very close to me, moved real slowly, and my friend saw too. It was about 3 feet away. It was about 8 feet high. It was a saucer, but not the exact same shape. It was more oval, and it had portals and all this stuff, and you could see the trees behind it, like as if it was like ghostly. If people's descriptions of ghosts, like you could see through it, but you could see the form very clearly. And then it just went away, and then it dissolved. After about 50 feet in front of us, it just dissolved. And she looked at me, and I said, tell me what, I don't want you to, I saw something too, but you tell me what you saw. And she saw the exact same thing I did. So that was my third big experience. But then I started taking my husband to check out the satellites, see if we see anything in the sky. And this is where I need Dr. Adair's help. Because Dr. Adair, I thought satellites always follow the same path, right? They go in the same direction each night, and if you're lucky enough to be on that path where you can see them, they all go in the same direction. Is that correct?
I mean, they're in orbit.
I'll start with that question first, and then I'm going to backtrack on a couple things. But just to answer your immediate question, not all satellites orbit the Earth in the same direction. Some are geosynchronous, and they don't move relative to the stars at all. And we have all sorts of different satellites doing sorts of different things, and they're going in a large variety of different directions. So there isn't just one path all or even most satellites take.
I see. Okay. Well, then the only problem I have with those satellites, and I can tell when it's the space station because it's a lot bigger. The only problem I have with the satellites is that there's some that start out going one direction and then do take a quick 90-degree, literally sharp 90-degree turn. Now, I don't think satellites can do that unless it's something else up and they have in space that they can do. I don't know.
It's hard to know from your description what you might have seen, but since we're telling UFO stories, can I tell you mine?
Sure.
I know, plot twist. Aaron's seen a UFO. All right. So I was still in graduate school. This would have been approximately 2012. I was living in Columbus, Ohio, and I remember looking up in the sky and seeing this particularly bright light up there. And I'm first thinking, like, the fact I'm even seeing it with city lights around me, it's got to be pretty darn bright. The normal stars are pretty hard to see that sort of way. And I'm looking there and I'm thinking, like, it's probably a satellite, and I'm looking there and it feels like it's moving. But then I'm also like looking at it and staring at a thing like, but it's too big and bright, and it's not like moving against the other stars and things like that? How is this thing moving as I expected? And I had to sit there for a couple minutes to finally figure out what I was looking at. For the longest time, it really was for me a UFO. It seemed like it was moving. It was definitely up in the sky. It was clearly an object. So it fits the UFO description. And eventually I figured out what it was, and only because I continued to sit there and stare at it for like a couple of minutes. And I realized what I was looking at was the planet Jupiter. And the reason I thought it was moving is that there were still like clouds up in the sky, but like just like really wispy clouds on like the periphery of my vision being blown by the wind. And it was because those clouds were moving, my brain was interpreting that was actually the light that was moving, because I was getting confused what was foreground and background ultimately. And the only reason I could figure that out is by continuing to continuously observe and testing out what I was seeing. With very fast things that are just like there and they're gone, or things just happen very quickly without any record, it is really hard to know what happens in any particular case. The only reason I figured out my UFO is I was able to observe it for a long period of time. Things that are flash in the pan, instant things, really hard to know what might have actually been there and what is interpolated by this crazy piece of meat in my head.
I agree, and I have had the same situations where I thought I was seeing like maybe weird lights in the sky and stuff, and find out it was just the way the air currents are and stuff, or the wispy clouds. Yeah, I figured that stuff out, and I'm always looking to debunk my own observations. That's why I ask other people what did they see first, to make sure I'm not just imagining things, right? So I'm not saying that I can explain what any of this is. And also we had another situation where we had a light show, basically white light, like it was like a war, was like bombs were going off in the air one night. And this is me, my husband, seeing the same things I am. And whenever we see something, we say, hey, look right there. And we'll say 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 5 o'clock. And we try to figure it out. And we see the same things, but how we interpret it, you're right. That's why we don't know what those lights were at all. The one thing that I'm glad you told us about the satellites not going in the same direction. That's helpful. But the thing with the right angles, and they do this we've seen that a couple times, where they just go, they switch the same thing, and we're watching it through our good lenses and whatnot. We're looking.
Karen.
Yeah.
We're going to move on, but thank you very, very much for your call. I'm sorry to do that. There's not a way for us to responsibly continue that call. There's too many red flags of what I think you're aware of what I'm referring to, and that at a certain point we're assholes if we keep that stuff on. And at best, we're also not a late night AM radio show where people can call in with whatever their, stories
I mean,
are.
I was I was a little confused as to where to go from there. So I mean, all right. I appreciate that, Jimmy. But we do have a theist caller next, who is asking about atheism. So, hey there, Jimmy. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. How are you guys?
Doing pretty good. Okay. I see you didn't give pronouns, so I will just refer to you in whatever kind of fashion that I prefer to.
I actually did get pronouns. I guess the screener didn't write them down.
Oh,
okay.
All right,
what are your pronouns?
I said, if you're, he asked me, like, do you have any preferred pronouns? And I said, no. He said, well, if you had to, what would you choose? I said, if you're going to put me down, put me as King and Lord.
Oh yeah, that's why, because it's a dick answer. Got it.
We'll see what this last call that's being screened topic is, but no, I'm not gonna. First of all, they just misgendered our screener as they were saying all that, and already, by the way, literally calling in with an ambiguous form of the name Jimmy. That is literally the non-gendered version. The gendered version is Jimmy, male, and Jimmie for female. And Jimi is literally the non-binary almost version. That is the gender ambiguous version. So you of all people should offer pronouns, you condescending douche. But no, I'm not. I'm somebody who's going to make light of and essentially whatever the topic is. If you're going to try to take the opportunity to essentially make a joke out of what are very real issues and people fighting for their very real civil rights, you can kindly lick the hair on my taint. It'll tickle.
It'll take off. Well, it looks like we lost our
preferred
last
to
call.
super chats?
It's all good. What's that?
Is that preferred to super chats? Licking your hairy taint? I don't know.
I feel like, what would that be? LMHT is going to become a new, that's our new acronym on the line. Lick my hairy taint.
LMHT. Lick my hairy taint.
If you're going to box me in with, all right, then you can use king and lord. Those aren't pronouns. That's the other thing. It is only the people who get so angry about there's so many pronouns. How are you supposed to remember when realistically in your life you are most likely to only meet people who want he, him, she, her, and they, them. And if on the rare occasion you meet somebody who wants zir, zer, be a human being and deal with it, you'll survive. But most people aren't even going to run into that. So, but pronouns are a type of thing. You can't just say any word. We had someone who tried to call in with comrade as the pronoun. That's not a fucking pronoun. Pronouns are as utility, a short version. It'd be faster to just say your name every time, you idiot.
When anyone says, I don't like pronouns, and of course the sentence literally starts with a fucking pronoun, it's like, okay, clearly you don't know words in general, let alone are you a terrible human being.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't understand why people got to be dicks about pronouns. It's like, hey, how can we, refer to you? And I feel like that's just common courtesy and not really that big of a burden. I mean, I don't know. These people just seem very ridiculous to me. That's why
do you ever notice that the men in that group are the easiest to emasculate in the world? Just everything makes them feel like you're calling them a girly boy.
Yeah. I feel like that crowd kind of, the anti-snowflake crowd, like, I'm not a snowflake. And it's like, but I think we can find a thing that you're a snowflake about.
And it's not even hard. The most minute things cause a meltdown.
Yeah. How should we refer to you?
You're not reading the sentences right. You're not saying the sentences of these people right. What they're saying is, I'm not a snowflake.
Oh, okay.
It's all about the tone, okay?
How dare you call me a snowflake? I'm not sensitive, you asshole. Here's 6 paragraphs in all caps left as a comment.
Yeah, I think we had another caller that got banned tonight. Yeah, I'm not exactly. We had another caller that got banned tonight, which was one that I told to call in from my Facebook page. But I think the problem was that, like, he said his pronouns, or they said that their pronouns were God and Lord. And
it might have even been the same person from honestly, it wouldn't surprise me, but that apparently that caller who also went screen. So I was wrong when they said, because it was a Morgan hadn't screened that person, but we had 2 screeners at the time. I was wrong when I said they hadn't even called. Turns out they had, and they were laughing the whole time, clearly making a joke of it. And we're going with, so it's like, do you think we're just going to let you through? Try to at least sound convincing if you're going to just try to yell Baba Booey.
Yeah. Anyways, I know that we got a few super chats for tonight. The lines are closed. I know that the last guy was trying to ask us about what our definition of atheism is, which is just my favorite conversation to have. But in any case, thank you so much for coming on tonight there, Dr. Adair. Do you want to tell everybody, remind everybody, who you are, what you do, and where they can find your books and everything like that?
All right, yeah. Physicist and Bible scholar, so I can waste people's time on all the different areas of academia. My main website is draronadair.com. I do have a Twitter handle, Facebook, LinkedIn, the major social medias. I pop up on YouTube all the time, whether with John, whether on MythVision or other channels like that. I will also be, should probably advertise in the, I don't know how distant future, if you guys have been paying attention to some of the documentaries that MythVision has been doing recently, I helped do some scripting there. So there should be a epic long Moses documentary coming up in the near future, which will have some mind-blowing things. Cool.
That sounds pretty awesome. I know all of that surrounding like the biblical scholarship stuff that you do is all very intriguing to me. Cause I know like one of your, I think it's either your first book or just one of your first books was actually about the star, the Bethlehem star, right?
Yes, that was my first book, trying to show, hey guys, you've been trying for 200 years to fit this with astronomy, and you can't even learn the basic language the story is in, because if you did, you would realize you're wasting everyone's time. That's the kind way to put it. I've ultimately found that it's very largely, it has started in just straight up apologetics, and the people who have been pushing it today literally cannot read the text. And when I say that, I don't mean only that they don't know Greek. I mean, literally, they don't know what it says and will make up what it says anyways. I've literally seen people make up verb tenses to try to explain what's going on. I really wish I weren't making that up, but no, literally people make up verb tenses to get their point across.
Yeah, and I've experienced people, some people that work in assumptions. Like they have a certain assumption about something, and then they apply the appropriate definition or whatnot to some Greek word to, including their assumption. And so they can't think outside of their assumptions, it seems. So, which I'm not an expert in Greek or a biblical scholar expert kind of person, but I feel like I've read my fair share, and I'm fairly decent like at understanding like the complicated scholarship. So but I mean, that's just me. Thank you so much there, Dr. Adair, for coming on. We do have a few super chats. I don't know, Jimmy, if you want to cue the super. There we go. All right, so I'll start off with 5 pounds. Is that pounds? Franks? 5
Those are
pounds in the chat from Faye, who says, so Dr. Adair doesn't have candy corn for dinner. Could you explain quantum in colloquial and physics terms?
So the word quantum in quantum mechanics is just basically say things come in defined quantities. They come in packages. So the original quantum mechanics was to explain problems in electromagnetism and thermodynamics that basically they realize, hey, if we just straightforwardly apply what we know about electromagnetism to hot cavities, just like if you have a warm oven and you wanted to open up and see what kind of light came out, the math was coming out that you would be destroyed by an infinite amount of radiation. And people were like, that doesn't happen. So what's going on here? And one of the solutions was, well, instead of light just taking any possible value or any possible amount of energy in any given amount, it was saying, okay, as a fudge, let's just say it comes in packages, and that was giving the much more expected results. And then Einstein was like, hey, let's take this seriously, and then explain all these other effects that he actually got the Nobel Prize for. Something called the photoelectric effect, which was also showing, hey, if you want like electrons to pop out of a metal, you can't just shine a bright light on it. It also depends on the frequency of the light, and that because it says how much energy comes in a packet of light and you need a minimum amount of energy to pop it out. That's what Einstein actually got the Nobel Prize for, not relativity, strangely enough. And yeah, basically from there, from just saying, all right, this is a kludge to fix this physics problem, to the entirety of reality is now ultimately indeterministic. It's like quite the leap, all from adding one word to our physics. I hope that was worth 5 pounds.
All right. If anything, it was definitely worth 5 Fs in the chat to pay the respects. All right. Could you do this one there, Dr. Adair?
All right. So $5 from Pandemonium. Before you hang up, I had a dream. Jimmy offered me a job last night. Go fuck yourself, Jimmy. Hello, gentlemen. Thanks for being here with us nutters.
More like a nightmare.
Yeah, and I'm so glad people were able to suffer through the UFO call tonight. I'm always intrigued by the different kinds of stories, because like tonight, I feel like that particular story, the highlight of it was 3 feet away from me and translucent. I feel like that was the height of the UFO stories tonight. So I appreciate Karen for giving that story tonight. Anyways, what's the next chat there, Jimmy? I think we got a few more. I'm such a bad salesman when it comes to that's my problem, is that I'm not a good salesman, and it shows in multiple ways. We've got $5 from Panda, who says, I just tuned in and have no idea what's going on, but here's some money for cheese. And also lick my hairy taint. I added that last part. That wasn't from Panda.
That was an editorial, yeah.
Yeah, paraphrase. That's what they meant.
All right. So we got $4.99 from Frank and Steen. Has his prayers happened? Would he be convinced it was God? Good question. Yeah, that's the counterfactual, isn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like there are a lot of people that, hang on to the minute things that happen in their lives, and it's like, oh, well, that's an answer to my prayer. Of course, it's always positive things. It's never like, oh, I prayed for, my debilitating genetic disease be cured, but God said no. And it's like, I believe in God and love him. They never say that. So
everyone send your super chats of $5 or more of the wishes you would like granted, and the host will reject them. They will tell you no. Send those in now and get told
I will
no.
give you I'll give you a good godly answer as to why God would be like, no, you must suffer this.
And make sure to add at the end if you want their response to end with, you dirty little pig boy, in case we're, helping you.
Yeah, I got to make sure I get a drink out of this in order to say that last part, but I'll do it.
Dirty little pig boy.
I can't say that. I'm not here to kink shame.
I wasn't asking you to kink shame, but I was asking you to do kink something.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. We got $5 from Grant Sarber, who says, before you hang up, you must buy some cheese to save Dr. Adair from overdosing on carnauba wax and yellow dye number 9. I guess the carnauba is the primary ingredient in candy corn.
I do see carnauba wax on here, but it says it's using yellow number 6 and number 5, not yellow number 9.
Ah, fuck.
So,
idiot.
Now,
I guess you gotta snort that shit anyways.
As if I would know what the difference is anyways. This is outside my wheelhouse. Physics, yes. Nutrition, not so much.
Is there a chance that it's called candy corn because it has, what is it called? Carnauba in it? That kind of cornuaba? I don't know. It sounds like it.
I don't know. My guess would be that it was originally made with like corn syrup or something like that. And maybe it was primarily that way. Maybe that's why it's candy corn.
I mean, I know
think
that
it's just in the shape of corn kernels.
Right. And if you put it in a spiral, the end is the corn kernel. But if you put them in a circle, you lay them down side to side and then you stack them, it actually does look like a corn on the cob. But I almost think that was figured out after because it's, I don't know.
So I asked ChatGPT just now for an explanation. It says that it actually comes from the distinctive shape and color. Candy corn is a type of candy that's typically triangular in shape with a wide base, blah, 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 blah. Basically, they just shaped it that way, and it was originally created in the 19th century by George Renninger, an employee of the Wonderland Candy Company, as a Halloween treat. So this was a decision that was made.
Yeah. I will note though that your source for that was ChatGPT, and I'm a little reluctant to take that because it's been known to hallucinate, literally just make up things and sound right, to the point that if among the YouTube channels I watch is Legal Eagle, and apparently talked about the story of some lawyers who used ChatGPT to write their legal brief, and the judge basically pulling him and saying, you were just making up court precedent. You better fucking explain yourself.
Yeah, by the way, that's actually ChatGPT working correctly. A lot of people don't know. ChatGPT, I'm not trying to correct you. There are people who will have heard that story and gone, oh, ChatGPT doesn't work. ChatGPT is fundamentally a conversation bot. It's a robot that you have. So when you ask it to behave a certain way, it doesn't do things like say, oh, there's no case for me to reference. It goes, here's what it would look like. Here's what an argument would look like that. And you would cite things like this, regardless of if the citation actually exists.
Yeah, and also because ultimately ChatGPT is trained on what's on the internet. If the predominant story on the internet is false, and that becomes part of its memory, then all you're doing is basically having a digital folklorist, or not even a folklorist, because they don't even know it's folklore, just repeating things that are just said on the internet. And I don't know if that makes the food more or less appetizing.
Yeah, I don't know. Would Wikipedia be any better of a source? Because it's like it says that the history of candy corn says that it was originally named chicken feed because of what it looked like, and but I mean it's still like it corroborates what ChatGPT said in that it was created by George Renninger for the Wonderly Candy Company. At least
I
have experienced ChatGPT just making shit up. Yeah. I've also experienced ChatGPT just making shit up, and because like I remember asking a few questions, and it seemed like ChatGPT was like a creationist, like because that's what it was pulling from, I guess.
Yeah, it's not like you can go to ChatGPT and say, prove that the Earth is flat, and it will just reject that and say, well, that's just absolute hogwash. It's going to try to follow your prompt, not follow reality. And that's the big fear I have.
I'm
Many people
antagonizing
thinking it's
somebody
a
in chat.
teller. Oh.
Somebody was saying, someone had said, maybe JIMI was being disrespectful toward the gender identity community, but that wasn't a reason to drop the call. You're too sensitive, Jemmy. But the thing is that I am the person on this network who decides the reasons to drop calls. Therefore, you are objectively wrong. Any reason which I say is a reason. If I just said only callers whose names start with J, you can say you wish I had different reasons, but to say that that was no reason is incorrect because I picked the reasons. You have objectively failed today.
Okay, so we're not doing divine command theory. We're doing Jimmy command theory.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And
Jimmy
it's not
command
just
theory.
a theory. It's a fact.
A Jimmy theory.
Yeah. Oh, that was good.
All right, I think I got to say this one. $5 from Sheridan Benasconi. I'm hoping I pronounced your name, Sheridan, correctly. Jimmy must yell at another caller this month.
Oh, you
All right,
know
Jimmy,
it's
that's on
always
you.
going to happen.
I feel like that happened right after this super chat.
That was a chatter. Oh, maybe. Oh, I see what you're saying. I don't know. I don't think I yelled today. I think I more just went, because I really only yell in response to people trying to talk over me.
Yeah. I was just thinking of how it's like, all right, well, we don't know what to do with this fucking call, Karen. We're just going to go ahead and leave. Goodbye.
That was me being polite and responsible.
That was hilarious.
I felt we couldn't responsibly continue the call. And at a certain point, continuing to let them go on is a bit like laughing at physically incapable people trying to do physical things. And I don't mean that as a joke. I felt that we were talking to somebody for whom it would just be shitty to let keep going. Anyway, look at this. John, I don't think you saw it.
No, I did not see this. Is that candy corn on a corn cob?
It's candy corn pushed into some sort of holding base that is actually a recipe I didn't bother to read, but it's a purposeful core that turns your candy corn into a candy corn cob.
Oh, wow.
The corn
that
looks
like
it
it's
might be
worth
sugar.
about 2,000 calories.
Yeah, I wouldn't eat it. Okay, let me figure out where we left off because I did have to go back to add that one because I had missed it before. Let me find. But people send more in. We have to pay the bills and we also have to pay the suffering cost. And there was some significant suffering tonight.
Yeah, I think I need to double my rate that you guys are currently paying me.
We'll triple it.
Very kind, Jimmy. Very kind.
Did we hit this one?
Yes,
we did. Okay,
we
hang on. And we did the Carbonuba wax or whatever. So I think this is where we are.
Mm-hmm.
It looks new.
Okay. $4.99 from D Sin, who says, we have Neanderthal and Denisovian genetics within our history. What was, quote, God doing in the billions of years we boinked ourselves into its image? That's a pretty good question there. I kind of feel what God was doing was if you can imagine this, everybody close your eyes. All right, this is what's happening. God is Casey's like, oh God, no. God is sitting in his recliner, like his what do they call them? The lazy boys.
Throne?
He's sitting in his lazy boys. He's watching his TV. He's flipping through channels and he's masturbating at the same time. And he did that for about 400,000 years or so, however long it took for all that to happen. He was just sitting there masturbating, and then all of a sudden he wakes up. He's like, "Oh, I guess I gotta get back to doing God shit. Let's deal with these humans," and that's what happened.
That's actually not very far off from Sumerian or Akkadian myth, where I believe in the story of like the marriage between Ishtar and Dumuzi, they go at each other sexually nonstop for like 50 days or something like that. And eventually Dumuzi's like, okay, I got to get back to God shit. I can't just be fucking around all the time. I'm sure.
God
Dr.
damn it, I
Josh
can't be
Bowen
fucking all the time. I've actually got shit to do, okay?
Yeah.
Fucking and
I think,
and shit.
Yeah, you can, of course, get probably much more detailed info from Dr. Bowen with maybe a little less crass language, but I remember that being one of the myths from the ancient Near East.
I don't know. I would pay to see Dr. Bowen be crass.
Oh, do we have a next chat to move to?
Oh, sorry. He told me to close my eyes, but he didn't tell me to reopen them.
Oh, sorry. I figured everybody would open their eyes after they were like, "Oh, God was masturbating in the lazy boy." It's like, wait, what the fuck?
Nope, I did not. I kept going.
All right. Let's try to go for this one. We got $20 from GB. I'm going to say that's Great Britain, so this should have been £20. We'll fix that later. Will the axiomatic theorems of mathematics, being currently incomplete, questionably consistent, and undecidable to a problematic roadblock in regards to progressing the fields of physics and the modeling of reality? So, questionably consistent. When it comes to actual mathematics, that is not a problem. The axioms of mathematics we can actually prove are at least consistent. The real problem is that the axioms of mathematics don't allow us to determine whether all possible statements are true or false in that axiomatic system. That is part of Gödel's incompleteness theorem from the 1930s. I think that's when he did his math there. So that's just some esoteric stuff there. Roadblocks regarding the field of physics, modeling of reality. I'd say probably the biggest problem right now physics has is it's just been really, really hard to conduct an experiment that contradicts some of our current theories, especially like the standard model of particle physics. We've tried really hard to find something inconsistent with it. In fact, this was something kind of cool. Recently, we completed, I shouldn't say we, I'm not involved in the experiment, but physicists at CERN were able to conduct an experiment with antimatter to ask the question, does antimatter behave in a gravitational field the same way regular matter does? And it's been really hard to experiment with that because if you're dealing with single particles, it's really hard to tell, what it's doing when it has a lifespan of a millionth of a second. But they were finally able to build these traps and get enough anti-hydrogen. So a nucleus that is a proton, but it's the antimatter form, so it has a negative charge, and the electron going around is called a positron, has a positive charge. Getting enough of those to create antihydrogen, put that in a container, and basically look and see which way does it fall ultimately, and determining, yep, it looks like it falls pretty much consistent with regular matter. That was an interesting experiment. No one was necessarily expecting the opposite, but boy, oh boy, would that have been cool if we discovered, hey, antimatter doesn't follow gravity the way we expected. No one was predicting that. This could be a huge avenue for new physics. And for better or for worse, it fell down like normal matter.
Yeah, can you imagine being those physicists and being like, fuck, it fell down like normal. Shit. Like that seems like some kind of really weird problem to have. It's like, God damn it, it fell like normal.
My theory works
Fuck.
again.
What else do we got?
Yeah, I mean, in many ways, the big problem at CERN is like, God damn it, worked again.
It worked like we thought. Shit. Fuck. What else do we got? Pull out the chest.
Yeah, so much of what is going on, especially in particle physics, is just trying to find any deviation from the theory that was kind of finalized in the 1970s. And that has been the frustrating thing, because if you want to get a theory of everything, it's got to predict something different than the current one. And if the current one keeps being fucking right, what are we supposed to do?
Fucking right shit all the time. Anyways, we got $9.99 from Sora, who is asking, are you guys aware that there is a theist who's doing response content with an AI voice that almost exactly sounds like the person they are responding to? What? That seems really weird. I feel like if they did it to me, it would be really weird to hear like my voice say something that was like totally unreasonable. That sounds like I'm spanking my own ass with it, but I'm just saying, like, for them to produce response content where I'm like, yeah, sure, God can do whatever the fuck he wants, like enslave people. Like, that would just sound really weird to me. And I'd be like, feel like I need to do something about this.
In terms of an AI sounding like other people, I've actually heard samples from that if you give an AI enough samples of a person's voice, it can do a remarkably good job mimicking that person's tone and affects. Like, it's, unless you are really familiar with that person, you might actually get fooled by modern AIs sampled on that sort of thing. So I can believe the tech is ready for that and people are doing that. So I'm afraid to find out if there's an AI version of me going around saying, oh yeah, the resurrection of Jesus changed the carbon atoms in the Shroud of Turin, and that's why it was dated to the 14th century. Then it actually proves that Jesus is real. I can imagine, and I fear there is an AI saying shit like that.
I think it's I know Jimmy's played around with this a little bit with his own voice, but there was this TV show called 24, where the premise of one of the seasons was basically that somebody had AI copied a voice of the current president or a former president and was gonna like do something disastrous with it. And I just think it's hilarious now that we've progressed to the point where that's just readily accessible to the commercial public. Like, that particular power is readily accessible. It's just crazy. I believe this 5 Fs in the chat is for you there, Dr. Adair.
All right. So $5 from Faye. Jimmy, you must tell a joke and laugh all of a sudden to make up for the dead air following Dr. Adair's excellent joke. John, cool hat.
Hey, I've actually had people like on the internet when I've made videos with this particular hat on, they're like, you see, he's working for the Illuminati. He's got the triangle there and everything. And it's like, it's just fucking Zelda. Like, I don't know what the fuck is your problem. But no, I mean, I've loved all of Dr.
Conspiracy.
Yeah, I know, right? I've loved all of Dr. Adair's jokes tonight. I mean, like, I have a problem with, especially after I've drank this much hard Mountain Dew, for it to communicate between my brain and my mouth. Blame it on the Baja. This is what I'm doing. It's 100 calories a serving, and there's like, I don't know, 5 servings in this motherfucker, I think.
For context, I think the thing that was happening here is the person is just trying to, we had said, send us messages telling us what to do, and they wanted, telling me what to do, and they wanted to do one using my least favorite phrase of all time, all of a sudden, which is an unnecessary, clunky phrase we, for some reason, use, despite the fact that the word suddenly is preferable in every way, every situation, no matter what.
Mm. Also, because it's on my mind, reading the last part of this, have you guys seen the movie Cannibal the Musical?
Cannibal the Musical? No.
I have not.
It's an early film by Matt Parker and Trey Stone.
Oh, okay.
And it's the quote-unquote true history of the famous cannibalism case in Colorado during the time it was a territory. Hence the name Cannibal the Musical. And yes, it has musical numbers. And I just remember that one of the characters has some sort of felt cap with a couple of googly eyes on there. So it's, a little bit weird. And one of the people was like, "Nice hat." And that's just one of the lines that sticks in my head from that film.
Speaking of Matt and Trey, I recently saw recently, like within the last year, the Book of Mormon Broadway play. I gotta say, I was not expecting like the entire cast to march out on stage with that was the last thing on my mind for that play, but fuck, it happened.
I think you cut out because all I heard was you say that you weren't expecting them to march out on stage, which is a pretty common occurrence in a musical.
With big dicks.
Oh, okay. I definitely missed with big dicks. Yeah.
The internet was trying to censor that.
Yeah, God didn't want us to hear with big dicks. I was like, really? You were surprised the entire cast marched out on stage? That's
no. I mean, it was at the very end of the show. They all marched out and they had giant fucking schlongs, and it was just like they were throwing them everywhere, and it's just like, oh my God,
John,
this
I
is
will
in
say
Alabama.
a lot of people haven't seen Book of Mormon, and I feel that there's an incredible amount of value that you got going in, not knowing that would happen, that you just robbed me and so many other people of having.
Yeah,
I mean,
haven't
that's
seen it
not
myself,
the entire
and
premise
I would have
of
liked
it.
to have been surprised.
I agree. I like to be only surprised by giant wieners in my face.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry for anybody that has spoiled the big dicks in the Book of Mormon.
We have a big no cock spoilers policy on this channel. Well, I'm going to need to see you in my office after this.
Okay. Yeah.
If I had an office, how great would it be if you walked in and I just had a huge dildo on the desk? just giant. That's right. I ruined your surprise too.
I'm wondering
Casey
now
said, I don't know why he keeps having you on.
I'm now actually thinking, could this become the new twist ending for the next M. Night Shyamalan film? Hey, there's just a giant dick.
I think that was implied in most of the movies, but yeah, this one will be explicit.
Let's see, I think it's me. Magical $20 from Kathleen Moncrief, who says, "Good show, 20 million out of 10. Would watch again." Awesome. I thank you so much there, Kathleen. You're awesome. Thank you for rating this, because I know Jimmy felt compelled to step in a number of times tonight, so I feel like I was really slacking on the whole host part. But I'm so glad that you feel like it was a 20 million out of 10. Thank you.
Don't be so hard on yourself. Half the time I do that, it's just because I'm bored. Also, I will say, if I have any real notes to say, I just think about how much Kathleen Moncrief has contributed to the show, and you haven't bothered to tell her Happy Thanksgiving.
Oh, it's October. Shouldn't I say Happy Halloween?
Not in Canada. It is October also in Canada, but today's Canadian Thanksgiving.
Oh, is it? Oh, Happy Thanksgiving there, Kathleen.
It's Thanksgiving today in Canada.
Yeah, it's Thanksgiving today in Canada. That's what they were just saying. Sorry. I could play a song like Happy Thanksgiving in Canada, the magical land of socialism.
That's not the Thanksgiving song in Canada. Have you not? Do you not know the Canadian thing? It's Happy Thanksgiving to you. Happy Thanksgiving to you. Happy Thanksgiving to Canada. Happy Thanksgiving to you. Do you just not read? Come on. The news.
Jimmy, I'm just getting a message. Apparently Disney just copyrighted that song, and now I think all the super chats are going to the mouse. Sorry.
You think that's bad? Justin Trudeau just texted me a picture of his fist.
That's not his fist.
Oh God.
That's our song.
All right. Okay, I think I'm up $5 again from Sheridan Berlusconi. So great show, guys. I have nothing else to add except go fuck yourself, Jimmy. Where's my other SC?
Super chat. I had missed it, but then I found it before this one came out, so now I can use it to gaslight Sheridan and say, "What are you talking about? We did it already." Sheridan, Jesus.
Sheridan, for another $5, we'll stop gaslighting you.
Yeah, that's right.
$12 from Randy Clark, who says, "What's the big deal with quantum dots? Go Jimmy yourself, Jimmy. Peace." Quantum dots?
Yeah, I think he's bringing that up because it actually just got the Nobel Prize in Chemistry.
Oh.
Now, this is a little bit, or I should say a lot of bit out of my expertise, but my basic understanding is that quantum dots is part of the explanation for the colors we see off reflective materials. And a lot of it is also basically like related to the size of the particles there and what sorts of things resonate at those levels. But a lot of the details I don't know or understand. The big thing I do know is that the ability to create and manipulate quantum dots is one of the reasons that LED screens on phones can be sharper or better looking than regular LED screens. It uses quantum dot tech. So it's at least worth $1 million according to the Nobel Committee.
Interesting. Yeah, I hadn't heard of the quantum dots thing. I'll have to definitely look into that. We got some more magical money. 20 magical dollars from Allison the animal, who says, "Hi Jimmy, the hosts you have put together are amazing. Loving John and Dr. Adair. Could I recommend Reads with Rachel for a future show? She works against book banning and grew up as a Christian fundamentalist, now an ex." That sounds interesting. Yeah, the banning's getting pretty bad right now. I know on my Facebook page, which I know everybody's still on Facebook, but on my Facebook page, the QR code that's there is actually a QR code that if you scan it, you will go to a list of banned books that have been banned by various groups in America. So I feel like that's important. I've actually got at least one of the books that's been banned, that comic called, it's the Mouse comic, Maus.
Mouse, yeah.
Yeah. I got that because it seemed like a pertinent thing to get. But
I
no.
have to say, when people were trying to push Mouse out and trying to ban it because it showed naked mice, it's just like, okay, tell me you're a Nazi without saying you're a Nazi. That's the only reason someone would go through this sort of book and show the terrors of the Holocaust, but trying to put it in animal form just to make it a tiny bit more palatable. But just like, no, you showed a naked mouse in the shower. This has to be blocked away from children. They can't possibly see this when it's fucking talking about one of the greatest tragedies of history. My goodness. Ugh. And that did not stop people from saying, you know what? This book banning thing might be a bad idea. Instead, what did people do? They saw the dial and they decided to turn that shit up.
Yeah, no, and it's really crazy to me because like there are people that are wanting to ban the Diary of Anne Frank, and for various reasons. But it's always kind of crazy to me because it's like they want to ban these books for whatever reason, but yet they really want to push the Bible in schools. But it's like, hey, the Bible has this dude whose daughters got him drunk and then raped him in order to procreate. So wholesome family values. And it just seems really ridiculous.
Genesis 38, and you got the story of Onan pulling out and then being killed by God for that.
Remember, guys, don't pull out because God will kill you.
Yep. Or what is it? I forget. Was it Rachel basically dressed up as a prostitute to get knocked up by her second cousin? Lots of family-friendly details. Okay, here's one that only recently I realized when I had to go to Wikipedia and see it drawn for me. If you look at the family tree for Moses, you will be creeped out.
Mm-hmm.
Moses' father married his aunt. That's literally the family tree of Moses according to the Hebrew text. So family values, people. Family values. Got to keep it real tight-knit.
We love family values. We keep our marriages within the family. It's great family values. I just look at the way I treat my own daughter.
Yeah, which is very creepy. But the one that I love the most is how God chose to base his entire chosen people on a dude that worked for 14 years to purchase 2 women and then decided to have kids with not only those 2 women, but also the slave servant girls that each one of them had. So, I mean, it's kind of like if you're wanting to base your entire religion on somebody, why not choose the guy that purchased women to do it?
Truly a righteous man.
All right.
I
know.
I think I'm supposed to read this for chat. I think it's my turn to read. Yes,
I think it's your turn.
Okay.
Yes.
So we got $20 from Elizabeth Chris. I hope that Jimmy sings again.
Okay, let me think. Okay. Hey, Israel, yes, Hamas should die, but try not to commit Palestinian genocide.
There you go.
I took it dark.
You know, you took it dark. I feel like a lot of people in this are like taking one side or the other when it's really like both sides are bad. Like the entire situation's bad.
Well, first of all, there's 3 sides and one of them isn't bad. Like the Palestinian freedom resistance sort of like, hey, we would like to have our land back from this apartheid government. You know, they're not the worst. Now, the Hamas section, the part that are using that to their advantage, Hamas is garbage and terrible. And Israel's disproportionate response and the way they have shrunken Gaza and isolated people. Yeah, that's all horrible. But the people that are like, yo, this is our home and, you know, maybe we shouldn't just be murdered and forced out by violence. Those people are fine.
Oh, definitely. Sorry, I did not mean to marginalize those people. Like those people are very important, but it's kind of like they're caught in the middle between these 2 dickhead sides.
Exactly. And to be fair, a lot of them have felt like they have no other ally besides Hamas. And I'm sure that there are people among that group where we'd be like, guys, you can't, that's not an option. But it's still the whole fucking thing from the onset. The whole thing's fucking gross. But of course, the people, I'm just really frustrated with people I even admire, like David Pakman today, acting like saying that you support Palestinian freedom right now of all times is actually you trying to say that you support Hamas, when that's not at all the case. It's that if you have an awareness of the disproportionate response of Israel to Hamas that has harmed so many civilians by the great many thousands, and you see something like this and they say we're declaring war and go, is it war or is this now your final excuse to just drive them out completely? Yeah, that shit just was really, really annoyed me. And again, like there are people who you expect it from. I threaded about how CNN on Jake Tapper, they had a representative from New York on who was literally conflating Palestinian freedom with pro-Hamas sentiment. And that was gross from both of them, but you almost expect it because that's a sensationalist news organization. But then to see even David Pakman displaying the same sentiment was very disappointing to me. And I hope that he clarifies and retracts that, because that was some garbage. Anyway, I don't have any strong feelings.
You knew how to make this.
I don't have any strong feelings on that.
Yeah, how I wish I knew how things could actually get better. But what can I say? The last administration, they sent Jared. He couldn't fix it. So how could I know how to do it?
If anybody, that's what he said. If anybody can fix it, it's just Jared. So apparently no one can fix it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I mean, I heard Trump say that he, like, while he was president, there was peace in the Middle East. And so, like, the entire time there was just peace in the Middle East. And I feel like he's just really over exaggerating his effect. I think it's also pretty funny how people are like, oh, well, if Trump was president, this wouldn't have happened. As if Trump being like, hey, guys, let's stop this silliness, okay? Like, I feel like people think that Trump has a lot more sway than he actually does. And it's just ridiculous to hear people talk about that shit.
I'm actually thinking back, and actually Trump helped exacerbate this because one of the things he did was move the embassy to Jerusalem, which was basically another like poke in the eye of the Palestinian people. So probably just adding even more fodder to the extremism.
I mean, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's going to be it for tonight. I appreciate everybody joining in tonight. If you will, please leave us a comment down below, as well as check out the Patreon account, patreon.com/call the line. You can help support all of the shows here. And if you guys don't know, we got shows going on all week. We've got some planned content for tomorrow, but Wednesday we've got Matt Dillahunty and Takis on Thursday. So definitely check all of that shit out, and I guess we will see you heathens later. Don't forget to stand up, use your voice, and all that kind of good shit. Bye, heathens.
Buy Dr. Adair's book. What's it called?
Yes, buy Dr. Adair's book.
Aliens and Religion, Where Two Worlds Collide is the most recent one. Also, you can buy The Star of Bethlehem, A Skeptical View. And if you're not sure which of the two to buy 2 copies of both to help you decide.
Excellent.
All right, those are all the people over there. If you want to, sorry, point in the wrong direction. If you want to be part of this list, become part of the Patreon. Okay, just saying.
Well, and this list is the top tier. This is our highest tier patron.
Yes. Thank you so much to, I believe it was Phoebe tonight. Thank you so much, Phoebe. I forgot to say thank you for that, but thank you so much there, Phoebe, for the call moderation. That was pretty awesome.
Ah, crap, I faded to the wrong thing. Here we go.